What if I told you you can have all the notes you need to play the blues in just one scale? And it's not the minor pentatonic scale, it's not the major pentatonic scale, so what is it? I like to call it the ultra, mega, blues, super scale. In all seriousness though, it's actually a combination of multiple scales combined to create one super scale. Now I've talked about this concept before. In fact, a while back I did a lesson about Eric Clapton's playing, and I introduced a scale I called the claptatonic scale, which was essentially another super scale that was using a bunch of different notes from different scales to create one super scale that translated to a lot of Eric's playing. And so this time around, I decided to put together another super scale so that it could cover all of your possible needs when playing the blues. And by the way, be sure to stick around till the end of this lesson because I've got a free gift for you that you're gonna love. All right, so let's talk about this blues super scale. So essentially, it combines the major and minor pentatonic scales with the added flat 5 or the blue note thrown in. So it essentially covers all the ground when it comes to the scales of choice when you're playing blues lead guitar. So in the beginning of the video, I was using the super scale in the key of C, right? But as I teach you this, I'm gonna show you that this actually can be adapted to any key. It's gonna be just another one of those movable scale patterns that you can move to any key as long as you conveyor belt it across the fretboard. But for all intents and purposes, we're gonna be focusing on the key of C for this lesson. So we're gonna start the scale on C, which is the 8th fret of the low E string. Then third finger is gonna play 10th fret, pinky plays 11th. And then moving on, our first finger is gonna play the 7th fret of the A string, and then 8th fret, second finger, 9th fret, third finger, 10th fret, fourth finger. So kind of like the spider walk, if you're familiar with that exercise, just for this particular string, we're gonna be doing, one finger after another. And then we're gonna move on to the 7th fret of the D string, first finger, and then 8th fret with second finger. We're gonna skip the 9th fret and go straight to the 10th fret with our pinky, all right? And then moving on, we're gonna be playing the 7th fret on the G string, and then 8th fret, 9th fret, 10th fret. Okay, and then moving on to the B string, we're gonna bring our first finger up a fret over here to the 8th fret of the B string. Third finger plays 10th fret, pinky plays 11th, and then we're gonna actually do the same shape right here on the high E string. So first finger on 8, third finger on 10, pinky on 11. So here's the scale in its entirety. Now on its own, it may seem a little busy for the blues, and I totally get that. But what you gotta keep in mind is this is a super scale after all. So it's combining notes from multiple scales to keep it in one neighborhood that you can borrow from and draw from anytime you're trying to get a certain flavor. So let me give you an example. I already told you the ingredients to this super scale, right? We have the minor pentatonic and the major pentatonic. And of course we have a flat 5 thrown in there, which is our blue note, right? Which of course, if we're doing it in the context of minor pentatonic, right, you'll hear that. Now here's the thing, there is another flat 5, right, that's purposefully omitted from this super scale. That doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong to play it, because obviously we are playing that same note, just an octave lower. But for all intents and purposes, I wanted to try and keep this at a 4 notes maximum per string. So that way it's just a little bit more ergonomic. But that being said, if you wanted to play the scale and then include that upper octave flat 5, you absolutely can if you're comfortable with that. Okay, so as you saw, we took the minor pentatonic scale, right, the major pentatonic scale, and then added that flat 5th, and we pretty much have all the ingredients to make a super scale. So when you basically play all the notes included in all of those scales, that's what you come up with. But to properly use this super scale, we have to first get a little comfortable with how we use each individual scale contained within. So let's start with the minor pentatonic, right? So when we're thinking minor pentatonic, right, we probably spent a lot of time with that scale pattern, right? And if not, you're definitely going to. It's arguably the most popular scale pattern you'll find yourself playing. And for good reason. I mean, it sounds awesome and it can be used for all kinds of great sounds. Now, when we're trying to go for like a kind of a, just a bluesier kind of like a little more attitude, a little grittier kind of sound, the minor pentatonic is perfect for that. We can do stuff like, right? So it offers a certain type of attitude. So we want to keep that in mind. The minor pentatonic can really invoke a certain kind of sort of vibe that we're going for if we're using those notes. Now, if we were to switch to, say, the major pentatonic, right, which in this case is here, generally, that's going to give us a much different vibe than the minor pentatonic, right? It'd give us something a little happier, but, instead of thinking it in terms of just being, happy versus sad, right, when you're thinking major and minor, it's actually a lot more complex than that. The major pentatonic can actually give you a lot of fun, really catchy and melodic notes in just some small boxes. So, for example, my favorite place, right, is right here. Those 4 notes in that major pentatonic scale, there's so much room for just cool, funky little lines like. There's a lot of opportunity there to create some cool, like kind of happy sounding lines, but they still have a certain vibe that you couldn't get from the minor pentatonic. Now you might be thinking, those two sounds kind of clash. How do they really work when you're playing over the same chord progression? Well, my friend, that's the beauty of the blues. There's lots of room for rule breaking, and historically, all the great blues guitar players before us have blazed the trail showing that you can combine major and minor pentatonics, and it sounds awesome. So check this out. You can think of it this way, just to introduce yourself to the idea. Let's say you want to start a lick in the major pentatonic, right? And then you want to end it in minor pentatonic. How I would approach it is something like this. If we're thinking in terms of the blues, that totally worked. It just was very bluesy. It started off major and ended off minor. So my recommendation when you're getting accustomed to going back and forth between those two flavors is to start with just like, let's say I'm gonna start a lick in one and then end it in the other, or vice versa, and just kind of whatever combination you want. But just so you can learn how to weave between the two and really invoke the emotions that you want to on command. And just to drive the point home, I'm gonna fire up that backing track again and just play the super scale just by itself so you can hear how each note has its place over that entire chord progression. So right there, you can hear how each note I played totally worked. So when you're practicing this scale and getting comfortable with it, you can hear how no matter what note you use, it's gonna somehow work in the context of what you're playing. So what I recommend you do after that is to just pick little boxes, right, in the super scale and kind of get used to the major pentatonic parts and the minor pentatonic parts, kind of weave between them. Like I said before, you can start by thinking you're just gonna begin a lick with one scale and end it with another, and then just start getting creative with it and trying different things. And then you'll get so comfortable with it over time that you're gonna be able to just know and feel your way through it to where you can invoke the proper emotion without even really thinking about what scale you're using. And when you wanna adapt this super scale to other musical keys, all you have to do is just start with the very first note, which is gonna be the root note, right? And adapt it to whatever key you're moving to. So let's say you're moving from the key of C to the key of A. Right? All you'd have to do is find A on that low E string, which in this case is the 5th fret, and then you play that exact same scale pattern, right? The exact same order of the fingers and everything, just adapted to this new position, and now you have the A super mega blues scale, right? All right, and you would do that same principle no matter what key you're playing in. So you've just been given a powerful tool that's going to aid you in playing blues solos in whatever key you want, and it's going to allow you to stay within one chunk of the fretboard, and it's going to cover all the ground you could possibly need. But now that you know this, the fun is only just beginning. There are so many possibilities that await you now that you're ready to put this knowledge to good use. And I happen to have just the thing. You remember that free gift I was telling you about? Well, I have it right here. It's a free blues guitar solo heat map. This is going to be the perfect resource for you now that you've learned what you've learned today to start playing blazing blues guitar solos and blues rhythm parts all over the fretboard. So be sure to click here to claim your copy or check that link in the description box. And with that, I want to thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. I'm Eddie with Guitar Mastery Method, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.